Becky King comes from a different era in Austin's history.
When I was little, there was just one channel of TV.
In the 50s, while she was growing up here, KTBC was the only game in town. When something aired on TV, everybody saw it. And Becky always remembers seeing this kids show.
I remember watching it and liking it.
There was a guy who wore a jumpsuit, and there was a segment dedicated just to celebrating birthdays. And Becky's pretty sure she was actually on the show.
I think when I was probably 6 or 7, but I'm not positive because it's been so long.
She thinks it was the early 60s. She remembers sitting on some bleachers, getting a little treat, and almost nothing else about the experience.
It's all very vague.
It was called The Uncle Jay Show, and it ran locally from 1953 to 1977.
Hi there, boys and girls. How in the world are you? Welcome to the Uncle Jay Theater at the Cavalcade of Comedy.
It was hosted by UT journalism graduate Jay Hodgson. It debuted more than a decade before Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, in an era when just around half of American households had TVs, the early days of television. They called on Hodgson because they didn't always have enough cartoons to fill the time block, according to Elizabeth Hansen. She's with the Texas Archive of the Moving Image.
So they needed somebody to fill that in-between time, and that's where he started becoming the host of this children's show.
This show began as filler because, as it turns out, celebrating kids' birthdays just sucks up a lot of time. Everything centered around Uncle Jay and his sidekick Packer Jack. Uncle Jay was straight-laced. He would impart wisdom on the impressionable youth of Austin. Do your chores, listen to your parents, brush your teeth. Packer Jack was the opposite. He always set a terrible example, and the kids loved him for it.
So the guy who didn't have good hygiene and didn't follow rules, they really related to him, and that was a funny thing about the show.
The entire show, for more than 2 decades, was shot live. A few segments were recorded, and there was one special episode where they went to the zoo, but the rest is gone. The odds of me finding a tape with little Becky getting a treat on her birthday were low. So I went over to the Austin History Center where I found the Rosetta Stone. This article was published in 1977, the same year the show went off the air, and it was written by Catherine Rips. This is the most definitive account of the show's history I could find, and so I tracked her down to see what she remembers about writing it.
It was 49 years ago, Sean, so I don't remember a lot of it. So sorry, I can't be more helpful with that.
Still, Catherine's article reveals a lot about how the show worked, like how they used puppets. There were 4 that would get regular airtime. There was a donkey, a one-eyed duck named Theophilus P. Duck, an alien named Zarky, and Silas the goat, which we actually have footage of.
This is Silas the goat from Beauty, Texas.
Uncle Jay loved animals. He'd have them on the show to teach children about Texas wildlife. And you know he was a real Austinite because he also brought his dog to work. This Chihuahua was named Princess, and she made regular appearances for 14 years. And because everything was live, things would sometimes spiral out of control. Like there was once where they brought out a monkey. And while Uncle Jay was explaining the segment, the monkey started swinging around the studio, and then it peed on him.
I do know that monkey. I know who you're talking about.
You know the specific monkey?
Yeah. I remember him vividly. He was around the station quite a bit.
This is Mary Strickland, and she was the floor manager of the Uncle Jay Show. It was her job to wrangle families, direct the broadcast, and manage chaos. And she told me this little monkey actually belonged to Packer Jack.
They lived at his house.
Until one day,
the monkey tried to kill Packer Jack.
The monkey bit Packer Jack, hospitalized him for 2 weeks, and he did survive, but the monkey was never seen again.
You cannot invite little kids to a show and then have them be attacked.
Which is why the very next day, Packer Jack brought in a mini horse. All right, I made that one up. Because even back in the Wild West of early TV, nobody was stupid enough to bring a delicate little horse onto a chaotic kids show. Because at any given moment, things could go off the rails. Like there was once where Mary was on set, the show was live, headphones on. And then she sees something off.
I saw this child on the first row going, ooh, ooh, and scooching down, like ducking. And I realized that the child behind her had gotten sick, was throwing up on her.
And then there was the birthday book. It was a collection of photos and birthdays that were mailed into the station. If there was anything confirming Becky King's appearance, it would be this. Unfortunately, Mary doesn't remember a birthday book ever existing, and detailed record keeping just was not happening.
Any other records? Wow, I would have to say they probably didn't exist a month later, and they certainly didn't exist this long unless they were just sitting in a box that someone took home with them.
So I met up with the only people who might have taken a box home with them.
Do y'all have any memorabilia from the set or from the show, or did he keep anything after it shut down?
Don't think we have a coffee cup, one of those coffee cups. Have you seen one?
This is Denise Hodgson, and she is one of Uncle Jay's 4 actual kids. There's also Wes, Wayne, and Debbie.
Everybody knew who our father was.
Yes.
And sometimes a car would go down the street and they'd honk, 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 and yell Uncle Jay out the window.
You're telling me your father's show got you catcalled occasionally?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
The Hodgson kids had a front row seat to the show, so they could fill in some key information, like what the theme song sounded like.
Da 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 da, something like that.
The Uncle Jay Show now exists only in fragments. It was on the air for almost a quarter century, and we only have about half an hour of actual footage. We have a couple first-hand accounts, a decent chunk of photos, a 700-word article, and a coffee cup. Countless Austin kids got to be on TV for the most exciting day of their lives. And if you were born here today, you might not know the Uncle Jay Show ever existed. And even if you did, there's no way to know what it felt like.
That's a section of your life that you've put up on the shelf over here, and you go by every couple of years and look at it or think about it.
Jay Hodgson passed away in 2007. And near the end of his life, he started telling his kids something.
One of his favorite sayings to me, there will always be an Uncle Jay. And I didn't understand that at first when he said that, but now as an adult, I realize what he's saying. And that's the truth. He lives in the memories of the children in that era.
So, I couldn't verify whether or not Becky was ever actually on the Uncle Jay Show. And so we're going to have to do something different. Hi there, boys and girls. We got a lot to get through today here on the Uncle Sean Show. But before we do, I wanted to introduce you to one of my good friends. Would you like to meet him? All right, but only because you asked nicely. Speedo, can you come on out here, please? Speedo? This guy's hilarious, isn't he? Do y'all like Speedo? You know, Speedo and I have known each other for many years now, but I've always wondered, how did he get his name?
Well, Speedo was born in a monastery. His real name is Monastery Speed Horse.
Speed Horse? So he can run fast, can't he?
He's really fast.
You think if he trained as hard as he possibly could, that one day he could win the Kentucky Derby?
Yes.
All right.
I think he thinks he can win the Kentucky Derby.
I believe. Give a round of applause if you think Speedo could win the Kentucky Derby. Well, folks, we have our question asker, Becky, here, but we got to say goodbye to Speedo. Everyone say bye, Speedo. You know, Becky, I was taking a look through my birthday book, and I realized I didn't have your name. But it is my understanding that today is your actual birthday.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
All right, so we're kind of doing all birthdays for this edition of the birthday book. But because you came out here, I'm so grateful, and I wanted to give you this ATXplained present and a home-baked pie. Becky, I also wanted to thank you for remembering. Because you see, children, remembering is one of the most important things that we can do. Remembering is how we show people that we love them. Like when we remember to do our chores, or if we remember our mother's birthday. Packer Jim, what the heck are you doing here? You look like you just woke up in a trash can.
Actually, it was a dumpster. They're way cozier. I just woke up because I heard you saying all this gibberish about remembering stuff. I'm here to say I like forgetting. I forgot to brush my teeth. I forget to do my chores. And this year, I forgot to do my taxes.
Packer Jim, you're setting a terrible example for all these kids. They have to remember. They have to remember to do their chores, and they have to remember to do their homework. And you know what, Packer Jim? I think I've had quite enough of you.
Ooh, pie!
Get out of here, Packer Jim.
And stingy and tasty.
Go back to your dumpster. Becky, I am so sorry about all of this, and I'm also really sorry about forgetting your birthday. So maybe you can help me out, just so I never forget again. Would you mind putting your name in my birthday book?
Sure.
Well, kids, we were also planning to shoot some armadillos out of a cannon, but that's all we have time for on this edition of our birthday segment. And so I wanted to thank you all for coming out. And one final reminder, there will always be an Uncle Jay.